transform my classes into project-based learning so that students will be able to not just getting the content from the textbooks that they have, but being able to link what they learned in the textbook into the real world, and being able to kind of organize their thoughts and being able to present that to either their fellow classmates or other people that are interested in what they're going through or what they are looking at. And later on, I will be talking about some of the uses that we can work with through AI to help us in teaching. And then also at the end, I'll talk about, briefly talk about the advantage and disadvantage from using AI. Alright, so this is just one example. So I started with teaching at a college level, but then later on, I also started teaching, I started tutoring young kids with their English. And so this is one of the examples that we project-based learning. So we read through, this is a very simplified around the world in 80 days story. After we read this, we did some projects alongside with what we were reading. We did some projects, and these are some of the things that we talked about, and also the things that we let them have a chance to kind of expand their learning, that is through the words that are in the story, but also being able to kind of organize their thoughts. So this one was, when we were reading this book, I actually printed out a map, a road map for them. And as we read along the chapters, we actually map out the route that they actually took. And so we talked about the different either geography or the different cities, locations, and how it was and traveling around the world. And so this is an example. And then towards the end, they actually were able to choose their own country they want to present. And we did a deep dive into the culture, the language, or the geography, the history of that country. And so this kid did it on Italy, and here is a very short example.
Now let's go to the one-stop place. I will talk about the Colosseum. It is the longest empire and it was built in 1,900 years ago. People have gladiator fighting. And next, I will talk about the healing power of pizza. The problem has certain houses and the most
So through this project, I not only let them have the chance to look at for example, if you're looking at the 3D poster that they created, they actually looked at the landform of the country, and then being able, we talked about the different types of maps that are out there when you're looking at different maps, how can you tell what kind of landform it is, and being able to kind of create that in their own way, with Play-Doh and whatnot. And then we also looked at the famous people from that country, and then also the landmarks and the food. And so they were able to being able to talk about those and use, we went onto internet, we actually I actually showed them how to use Google to, what are some of the keywords, if I were to look for this information, what are the keywords that we want to use in order for them to find the information that they need. And so we not only looked at the things that we want them to be able to get, but also being able to actually utilize the technology that we do have nowadays. All right, so let's continue on. So after that, we talked about how the transportation was very different back then because they were saying, wait, why does it take 80 days to get there? Because nowadays you can just take an airplane and be able to travel there. And so we actually looked up what time or what year that humans started using airplanes. And so we talked about how it's different back then versus now. And we also looked at the details of how these steamboats or steam trains were made, and we built our own pop-up. So basically kind of same idea of how a steamboat is. Alright, this is us testing it out.
Okay, we go. We tested math first, and did it work right? Yes, it worked. You need my help?
There's a lot of hands-on, so it's not just...
Even place that down underneath the border, our engine. Good. And that's
No more.
yeah, I'll try it. I don't think you can do that upside down. Yeah, no, got it. Okay, here you go. Could you place it down, David? And just align it together. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it should be all right. Let's see if we can see it actually. Actually not doing birds, right? Well, it's really cool.
And so, it was, there was a lot of these project-based learning. There are a lot of trial and errors. The first time we were trying to do this, it didn't work because there were some leakage in the tape that we created, and then also we didn't know that we need a little bit more energy to it so that it will actually work. And so this was our second attempt. So I'll speed up a bit.
Maybe it's going to be a little bit more pressure or time there. The last time we did try to
I know because this came up
but it's actually burning it's actually burning the oil. I don't think that's it. Why do you put it?
And so it actually worked the second time around. The first time around, so there were a lot of, with these project-based learning, I feel that it is very important for them to be able to have in that moment and being able to create that kind of hands-on experience as well, where there was a lot of things that we kind of talked about. Like the first time, we actually used the tub to do it, and we had to fill up the whole tub to do so. And the second time around, I was like, let's just do the same. And they were asking me why we're not using the tub. And I explained to them, like, there's like water conservation, like what is water conservation? So kind of also dive into that as well. So there's a lot of things that we can kind of expand while we're learning English or learning a language. All right, here we go. And the other project that we worked on was for them to write their own story. So after reading this, I kind of want them to not only be able to talk about the things that they found out, but also maybe be a little bit more creative and coming up with an idea of how a story would be like what kind of story do you want to tell after learning about that country. So this was from another student, and he was looking at Greenland. He picked Greenland as his project, and he came up with this story. And we talked about not just like telling like the structure of the story, but also like what are some of the other sentence types that they can actually use in their
water, and seal was flapping its flippers very fast. They were like jets, because the meat-eaters from the north of Greenland wanted to eat them. Whale and seal decided to go to the vegetarians in the south for help. When muskox and reindeer were picking out the berries, another group of meat-eaters jumped out and wanted to hug them. "Run!" cried muskox. "Let's go to the vegetarians." "I heard they had magic mushrooms." Reindeer panted as he galloped through the trees.
Alright, so if you notice, like they actually have a lot of information in their talk, and we kind of did like for a few days on like the trying out like the different information, like how where to stop, like where is like a meaningful stop, and then when like, you can go up and down to kind of express how the characters are feeling, how to excite the listeners if you were to like use it as like a way to tell your story. Right? So basically those were the 3 projects that we did after reading, or while we were reviewing that story. Alright, and so here are some examples of using AI in instruction. So a lot of times you would try to test out like, whether they understood the content or not. And there are many, I would say there are many AI tools emerging right now. And these are just like 2 websites or tools that I've been using that a lot of language instructors could use in their teaching. And one of these is which is helping instructors to go from giving them just throwing out a topic, and then they would create the slide first. So this is just an example. For example, I typed in types of animals, and then you can actually they would ask you like, what is the tone of voice that you want to have in this presentation, and I chose formal, and so the content would be the taxonomy of animal kingdom. So that it did give up a lot of information that was needed for kids to understand the different types of animals. But again, because it's formal, so there were a lot of big words were used in this PowerPoint slide that was generated. And the other one was again the same keyword, and the tone of voice is created. So I would say it's really interesting if instructors were to use the AI to help out with the language instruction, and being able to like create these PowerPoint slides that are using. And I'll talk about some of the problems that there are if instructors were to use this in their teaching. And then this one is from text to questions, so just copy any kind of text that you have at hand, either text from your textbook or from online information that you found, and then they will generate the questions, like how element of entertainment. You get to sit there and listen to us like talking about the ideas, either the language structure or whatnot. There are a lot of these like interactive things that we need in our regular instruction where they'll be drawn to it so that they'll want to continue on with their learning. And so the disadvantage though is that whether the data is reliable or not, because a lot of times if we were just like to get the content from the internet, a lot of the details are being presented wouldn't be 100% true or they will be outdated. So as instructor, if we were to use AI, it is quite important to be able to also, after generating all the questions or the content or the PowerPoint being generated, we do need to go through the content and kind of save the time on putting it into those question form or into the slides, but do need to spend a little time on going through the content, either the wording of it or the content itself. And then there's also the thing of lack of qualified professionals. What I'm saying is that if we were to think about, for example, I don't know if you guys use Kahoot or BlueKid. There are a lot of like interactive websites where kids really use today for them to like kind of get involved in it. And as long as they have a cell phone or iPad, they can have that interaction with the whole class or with the teacher. In the beginning, when we started using it, using those tools, there weren't a lot of content on there. But as time goes on, because a lot of teachers know that there are these things, these tools to use, and so they were able to kind of build the content and share the content. And so nowadays, if I were to like look up, for example, types of animals, and I want after teaching the types of animals, I want them to be able to kind of check whether or not they understood it or not. I can just go online and type in that, and I'll be able to get the other things that they created, and I'll be able to use it. I think that is kind of the same thing for AI today, where all these generated stuff needs these either instructors or people that do use them to kind of go through the content and being able to double check, either fact check or double check the content of it, so that more people can actually benefit from it as well. And so there are a lot of tools out there, and it's really interesting to look at how we can use it in our instruction and also benefit, like we can benefit from it to quickly kind of know the content and how to help our students to understand the content. That was all. Thank you.